Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to be making a polar bear, and these are the materials that we will be needing in front of you. I'm going to be using the color black from Red Heart Super Saver. I'm also going to be using the color white from Impeccable Loops and Threads. I'm also going to be using the color beige for the eye highlights, a yarn needle, a number 5 hook, which I am using, but you guys can use whichever hook size that your yarn recommends, some scissors, a stitch marker, and some filling. I'm going to be using polyfill, but you guys can use whichever filling that is easier for you to find at any store or that you have at home. But let's begin. To begin, we're going to be making a magic ring of 8 single crochets. So to make a magic ring, you're going to make sure that the yarn is facing you. Yarn over your finger. Make sure there is a little X right there. Hold it in place. Put your hook through that circle. Yarn over, pull some yarn. Pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through that loop. That makes your knot so that it secures the circle. You're going to pull out that small piece of yarn, and we're going to need that for a bit later. Now I'm going to make my 8 single crochets. So put your hook through that circle, yarn over. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. So that's going to count as your first single crochet. So again, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm gonna count my stitches. This is what it should start to look like. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I just need one more. 8. Now we're going to close the circle with that small strand I told you earlier. You're going to pull it like that, and it should start to form. Pull them nice and tight, and this is what it should look like. Okay, so now that we are done with that magic ring, we are going to close it. So you see that little gap right there? That's where it separates the circle from being closed. I'm going to be switching to a number 3 hook so that I'm able to get into that small stitch right there, just like that. And you're just going to do a simple single crochet. I showed you how to do that. And that counts as our first stitch. I'm going to switch into my regular hook. So now we are going to increase on all of the stitches on the magic ring. So we're going to increase, which means we're going to do 2 single crochets in the same stitch. So get into that same stitch which you did just now. Just do a single crochet. Let me do that again, sorry. Just like that. There you go. So do 2 single crochets in the same stitch, in every single stitch of that magic ring. You're going to mark the first stitch that you made. Not the second one, the first one. You're going to do that for all of the stitches. So that's 1, 2. Okay, so now that you're done with row 2, we're going to make the first single crochet for row 3. So go into that first stitch of where the stitch marker is supposed to be and mark that with your stitch marker. Secure it like that. Okay, so now you're going to increase into that second stitch. So remember, that's 2 stitches in 1. Okay, so for that first stitch where the stitch marker is, you did 1. And then that next one you did 2. So then in the next one you're going to do 1 single crochet, and that next one you're going to do 2 single crochets. So the pattern is 1 2 1 2, and you're going to repeat that for the whole row, and you should end with 24 stitches in the end. Okay, so now that you're done with row 3, we're going to start on row 4 by single crocheting in where that stitch where the stitch marker is supposed to be. Mark that, and for this row that counts as our first stitch. And now we're going to do another single crochet, so that's 2, and then in that next stitch we're going to do an increase, so 2 in 1 stitch, so that's 2. So for this pattern you're going to be doing 1 single crochet, another single crochet, and in that third stitch you're going to do an increase, so that's 1 stitch and 2 stitches, and you're going to be doing that for the whole row. So now that you're done with row 4, I forgot to mention, so sorry, you're supposed to end with 32 stitches. Sorry, I forgot to put there. But now we're going to start on row 5. So take off that stitch marker, place your first stitch for row 5, and as always you're supposed to mark it so you don't forget where you started your new row. And now we're going to do 2 more stitches. So now that you're done with your 3 single crochets, you're going to do an increase in the 4th stitch. 1 and 2. So you're going to be doing 3 single crochets. That's 1, 2, 3. And on that 4th one, you're going to do the increase. And you're going to be doing that pattern for the whole row. And before I forget, you're going to end with 40 stitches for row 5. Okay, so now that you're done with row 5, we're going to start on row 6. So we're going to take off the stitch marker. We're not going to be doing any more increases. We're going to start to do like the head shape to look like a basket kind of form. So we're not going to be doing any more increases. We're just going to go into that first single crochet and mark it as always, secure it as well, just so that we don't forget where we started. And we're just going to be doing normal single crochets all around, and you're going to be doing from row 6 to row 12, and you should end with the same number of stitches from row 5, so there shouldn't be any difference. Okay. So now that you're done with row 12, you're going to start on row 13. So right now we're going to start with the shape of the nose. As I said before, this is supposed to look like a basket kind of shape, and you might be looking at the head looking like this and the strand is poking out, but you're supposed to actually flip it inside out so that the strand is inside the head and your stitch work is outside. So we're going to start row 13 by single crocheting 6. So that first stitch is where our stitch marker is supposed to go. Then we're going to do another one that's going to count as number 2, number 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now we're going to start the form of the nose. So usually we're going to do an increase of 2. So for this one, you're going to do an increase of 3. So you're going to do 3 in 1 stitch. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now that we're done with that first increase, now you're going to do it for another 5 stitches for a total of 6 increases. That's going to start the shape of the nose. Okay, so now that you're done with that, those 6 increases, and should start to look kind of like a hat kind of shape with like the top right there. So then after those 6 increases, you're just going to single crochet all the way to hit the stitch marker, and you're just going to finish off like that. Okay, so now that you're done with row 13, we're going to start on row 14 by just single crocheting into that stitch marker stitch, just like that. And for rows 14 to 16, you're just going to be single crocheting, and we should start to get a form for the head once we have done the increases for the nose. And add up the same amount of stitches from where we did the increases on the nose, and add those up to the other stitches, and you should have your amount for those rows. Okay, so now that you're done with row 16, this is what it should look like. And now we are going to single crochet into row 17, and we're going to crochet into 6 stitches. 1, that's where the stitch marker goes. Now 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so this is our head, and this is where our nose and mouth are going to be on. So now we're going to make an invisible decrease after those 6 single crochets. Okay, so now that we're done with those 6 single crochets, we're going to decrease. So to make an invisible decrease, you take the front loop of a stitch. You're going to do the same to another stitch. So take 2 front loops from 2 stitches, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops like that. You should have 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through 2. That's an invisible decrease. Now we're going to single crochet into the next one, just like that. And again, invisible decrease, 2 front loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And you're going to do that. Okay, so now that you're going to do 6 decreases and 6 single crochets. Yes. So right here, sorry. I mean right here, you did your first decrease, then a stitch, decrease. And you're going to do 6 decreases and 6 stitches, and then you're just going to single crochet into the rest of those stitches. So it's just a pattern of 1 decrease and 1 stitch, 1 decrease, 1 stitch. Okay, so let's just say you're going to end with 12 stitches. You're going to do 6 decreases and 6 single crochets. And you should end around this part. Okay, so now that you're done with those 6 stitches and 6 decreases, this is what your nose should start to look like. Okay, so now that you're done with those 6 decreases and 6 single crochets, you should end off with the 6 single crochet, and after that you're just gonna single crochet all the way around to hit that stitch marker. Okay, so now that you're done with that last row, we're gonna start on row, I think, 18. We're gonna do the same procedures as last round. Do that first single crochet and mark that. That always counts as our first stitch for the row. That's number 2, number 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now we're going to do the same thing as last row. We're going to do the 6 single crochets and 6 6 decreases. So after that 6th stitch, we're going to do the decrease. Remember, it's the 2 front loops of 2 stitches, and then after that decrease you do 1 single crochet, and then again the 2 front loops of 2 stitches, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And you're going to do that until you hit those 6 single crochets and 6 decreases. Okay, so now that you're done with those 6 decreases and 6 single crochets, we're just gonna single crochet into the rest of those stitches to hit the stitch marker right there. But before you do anything else, after you hit that stitch marker, we're gonna be making the eyes. Okay, so now that you're done with all the rest of those stitches, please don't do anything else. We're going to be making the eyes, which we're going to be putting right there. So for those of you guys who have safety eyes, you can just plop them into the head, but I don't have any. I'll put a picture right here. I'm going to be making my own with the black yarn and the color beige. Okay, so for those of you guys that have the safety eyes, you can just plop them in. You can skip this step. But for those of you who don't have any safety eyes like me, I'll be making them. I'm going to show you how. So first off, we're going to make a magic ring, and we're going to use 2 fingers. I like to use 2 fingers, or you could just use 1, but I like to use 2. So we're going to make the magic ring, the yarn facing in front of you, facing you. Wrap it around once, make the X, hold it in place, stick your hook into the yarn, pull up a loop, then you're gonna yarn over, pull through that loop to make the knot, pull out the little strand, and I also forgot to mention that I'm gonna be using a number 5 hook, and I'm gonna do 5 single crochets. Okay, so if you are gonna be using a thinner yarn like this white yarn, I recommend just doing as many single crochets into the magic ring as needed to make it smaller. But if you're gonna be making a bigger one, you're gonna do as many single crochets into that magic ring to make it the size that you want for that polar bear. But I'm just going to be doing 5 as usual. Okay, so now I'm just going to be closing it in. And so if you're going to be making a bigger one or a smaller one, just make sure it fits on the face. Don't go a little overboard, because they're going to place like right about there and right there. You can make some eyebrows if you want, and we're going to be making the nose and the mouth in that area. Okay, so now I'm going to be using a smaller hook to be able to get into that first stitch to be able to finish off the magic ring. You guys can rewind the video if you want. You can't see it because it's black. But you guys can rewind the video to see how I finished it off. But this time it's a little bit different. You're just going to go into that first stitch like that. And you're going to yarn over, pull through that stitch. Then you're going to make a slip stitch just like that. Then chain 1. And then you're going to pull a little bit. And then you are going to tighten that. Make sure it's nice and tightened so you don't have a hole in the middle. and then you cut off the excess and you pull, and there's your finished eye. Now I'm going to be making the eye highlights. So make sure you make 2 eyes with the same steps I just showed you. So now we're going to start on the eye highlights. Just making the same magic ring. You guys can use the color beige if you want. If you don't have it, you guys can use the color white. I use my 2 fingers, wrap it around once, make the X, hold it in place, pull some yarn. You guys should be familiar with doing a magic ring about now. It's really simple. Pull out that little strand. And I'm going to be making 4 single crochets into that circle. You guys can do 4 or 3 single crochets, but I'm going to be doing 4. Also forgot to mention that I'm using a number 3 hook for this. And if you guys are making it smaller or bigger, just add more single crochets to that circle to get the size that you guys are desiring. So pull it tight, maybe not too tight, so that your hook is able to get into that magic ring. So it was a bit tough to get in until now. Now we're just going to do the slip stitch to that first stitch. So you're just going to yarn over and then pull through that stitch, and take that same loop and pull it through that other loop. Chain 1, pull just a bit and cut it off. And then you're gonna pull tight, and you're gonna repeat those steps for 2. So here I have the black eye and highlight on top of each other. I'm gonna try my best to show you guys because my fingers are big and I can't really show because they cover up most of the space. But you guys can put them to the side, up or down, to make them looking like up or down, to the side, or up or down. But I'm gonna show you guys I'm gonna try my best to show you. So you're just gonna stick in the yarn into the needle, and then stick it through the black eye into any place you are able to. Then stick it back in to go through the highlight. It's quite tricky if you close it in really tight, as I did. And I pull it out, poke it back in, pull it out, and repeat that all around the eye, all around the highlight, I would say. It's a bit of a struggle, but you guys can do it. Pull that out, and then you're going to repeat that for the next eye. Just like that. We are done with that eye, with the highlight. But I'm going to stick in the other strand of where we started the magic ring into the eye as well. If it's a bit short, try sticking it in first and then putting in your yarn to pull it in. But don't cut off or make a knot yet, because we're going to do that when we put it on the head. So here I have it stitched mark to the head in place of where I want the eyes to be. So I did the same steps for the eyes, and it's just going to go around the whole head the eye is gonna be stitched around the head, just like we did with the highlight on the eye. So first I'm gonna be doing the beige color. As I told you, I'm gonna be doing that inside the head before I tie a knot and cut off the strands. So it's a bit tricky since the eye moves around a lot. You can just stick it in really easily, pull it out, pull it tight so that it doesn't move, and then also do the other strand. I skipped it because it takes a long time for me to get the yarn into the needle. But pull those two pieces of yarn into the head, and then we are going to make the knot there. Just make a simple knot. I don't need to explain this, do I? And then pull it nice and tight to secure it. Maybe do 2 knots, 3 knots. I'm gonna cut those later. Now I'm gonna do the long piece. So now you're gonna do the same procedures as we did with the highlight on the eye. You're just gonna stitch it onto the eye, just like around the head, to make sure you get like each side all secured with the yarn. So you pop it back out, pop it back in, pull nice and tight. And here I'm going to take off the stitch marker right after I get that stitch in. Now I'm going to take it off so that I am able to go onto the next side, go around the head. Just like that. Oops, sorry for having it a bit to the side there. Try to get it on like the black part of the eye. Don't stitch it into the highlight, because that's just gonna look bad, and I don't think you're gonna want that. So yeah, you're just gonna stick it all around like that. It's a bit hard to show on the camera. I tried my best, but here you are. You just do the same thing, kept repeating it a lot, but you just tie the knot of what you did all around, nice and tight. I do 2 knots. Now I'm going to cut it. It doesn't really matter how long you leave the strands because they're going to be inside the head. So also cut those beige strands. And they're not going to really notice because they're underneath the eye and not around the face or the head. Now you're going to do the same steps for the other eye. Okay, so now that you are done with those eyes, we're going to start on row 19. So take off that stitch marker, single crochet into that first stitch, mark that again, and you're gonna that counts as our first stitch. So now you're gonna single crochet into the next one. That's our number 2, number 3, and number 4. Into that next stitch, we're gonna be doing an increase of 2 in 1. So not 3 like last time with the nose. You're just going to do 2 stitches in 1. That's 2. And you're just going to repeat the pattern of 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, 3 single crochets, and 4 single crochets, and then an increase. So remember, that's 2 stitches in 1. So do that for the rest of row 19. Once you're done with row 19, you're going to do the simple single crochets from row 20 to row 34, and with those increases we're going to be making the shape of the body. So just single crochet from row 20 to row 34 to end with 40 stitches. Now that you're done with row 34, we're going to start on row 35 by making 4 single crochets. So go into that first stitch where the stitch marker goes. So that counts as our first one as always. So that's 1. And then 2, 3, and then 4. In that next stitch, we're going to be doing the decrease. So again, take the front loop of the stitch, and then the second stitch, take the front loop, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So again, you're going to be doing 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, 3 single crochets, and 4 single crochets. And on the next stitch, you're going to do the decrease. Yarn over, pull through 2. You're going to be doing that all for the whole row to get like a nice dome shape, and we're going to continue that for the whole row. Okay, so now that you're done with row 35, we're going to pull a bit and we're going to stuff the body. So add as much stuffing as needed, and also make sure to get into that nose so that it expands and doesn't look wrinkly as we have it right now. Stuff, stuff, stuff. And here I have my stuffed animal right here, all nice and stuffed on that nose as well, so it expands and doesn't look wrinkly and ugly. So now we're going to continue with our rows. Now we continue on to the next row. So for this row, you're going to do 3 single crochets. So that's 1 where our stitch marker goes. Try not to get a lot of stuffing where you single crochet and around the body, because there can be like some little strands of stuffing poking out. Trying to get that. So once you have those 3 single crochets right there, you're going to do the decrease. So 2 front loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, sorry. Then the 2 single crochets, 3, I'm getting a little messed up here. So that's number 3. And then your decrease. So 2 front loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. You're going to do that all around. Now to start our next row, we're going to do 2 single crochets and then 1 decrease. So go into that first stitch of where our stitch marker is, single crochet, and then mark it again. The decreases are going to be making the dome kind of shape so that it finishes off. Now that you have those 2 single crochets, decrease, 2 front loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. 2 single crochets, 2, and then the decrease, 2 front loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to be doing that for the whole row. Okay, so now that you're done with row 37, we're going to start on row 38 by single crocheting into that first stitch and mark it. Then you're going to be doing the decrease on the next stitch. So do the 2 front loops, pull through those 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2. You're going to be doing the same pattern, 1 single crochet, 1 decrease, 1 single crochet, 1 decrease for the whole row, just like that. Now that you're done with row 38, we're going to start on row 39 by single crocheting to that first stitch, and then you're going to do the next stitch a decrease. So first stitch, you're going to mark that. Same procedures as the last row, so 1 single crochet, and then you're going to do 1 decrease. So 1 single crochet and 1 decrease. So now it's a decrease, Now you're just going to repeat that pattern to end off with 8 stitches in the end. So now that you're done with that, we're going to take some stuffing to fill in that area where we were doing the decreases so that it's nice and full. Stuff it in. And now we are not going to be needing that stitch marker anymore for now. And you're going to be pulling some yarn. I'm not sure how much. Just pull enough yarn that you think is enough so that it is enough to be closing in the circle. Sorry, but I forgot to mention, I went back, you chain one first, and then you're gonna be closing that in. So cut that off. You do the chain one so that it secures the yarn and it's not like, how do I say this? It's not undoing all your stitches so that you can secure it correctly. Now you can just put in that yarn through that yarn needle hole. So sorry, I'm just trying to get through this. So now you're just gonna take the front loops of 2 stitches. It's practically like doing a decrease. And then you're just gonna pull through those 2 loops, tighten, and do the same thing all around. So the 2 front loops of 2 stitches and pull. And you're just going to do that for the whole small row. So now that you're done with that, it should have like a nice spiral star kind of look. Now we're just going to stick in the needle in there. Then I'm going to leave in a loop to put in the needle through to make the knot nice and tight, secure it well. Then just stick it anywhere in the body to get the yarn lost so that then you can cut it. Just like that. Make sure not to cut any stitches because it could create a big hole in the body and you're going to have to start over. We're just going to have to fix it. So there's your body. Okay, so now we are going to be making the arms for the body. So to start off, we're going to be making a magic ring of 6 single crochets. So have the yarn in front of you, facing you. Wrap it around once, make the X, hold it in place, stick your hook through the circle, and then you're going to pull some yarn, like that. Pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through that loop to make a knot to secure the circle. Then take out that little strand. Now we're going to make our 6 single crochets. So, oops, sorry. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we pull the little strand to tighten it, but leave a little gap so that you are able to get into the magic ring into the first stitch. But maybe use a smaller hook if you're not able to get in. Yeah, I'm gonna go switch over to a smaller hook. I'm always using a number 3 so that I'm able to get into those first single crochets. So first off, you're gonna do that first single crochet of the second row. So you're gonna go into that first single crochet And I'm going to switch back to my number 5 hook and then tighten nice and tight so that you don't have a hole in the middle. And then I'm going to mark that first stitch we just made right there, secure that. Okay, so for the second row we're going to be increasing in all the stitches, so put your hook back into the first stitch. Okay, so I pulled a little too tight, so I switched back to my number 3, and I'm going to go into that first stitch again to increase. So there's 2 stitches in that one stitch. Now you're going to do the same thing all around, so 2 stitches in one, which makes the increase. You should be ending off with 12 stitches in total, since you did the increases in all the stitches and you did 6 single crochets into that magic ring. Okay, so now that you're done with row 2, we're going to start on row 3 by just normally single crocheting into all the stitches. And I'm going to mark that, and I'm also going to be keeping my number 3 hook, since it's a bit harder for me to get into those stitches if I am using my number 5 hook. And I recommend you guys using a smaller hook for you to get into those smaller stitches. So you're going to be single crocheting from row 3 to row 10. Okay, so now that you're done with row 10, this is what it should look like. If you're going to want the arm to be bigger, you can increase in the 3rd row to get the desired length or size that you want. But I think I'm good with this size. And you're going to repeat those steps for 2 arms. Okay, so now that you're done with that, we're not going to be making any decreases to make that nice round kind of shape. We're just going to be single crocheting. We're just going to go into that first stitch of where the stitch marker was and slip stitch. Chain 1 and pull up some yarn. And then we're going to cut it. Oops. And cut. Pull and tighten, and you're going to repeat that for your other arm. So I'm making my other arm, and what I forgot to mention in the last time is that you're supposed to flip that inside out so that it should look like this, and you have that nice round shape at the bottom. And so that your string is on the inside and your stitch work is on the outside. Here I have my 2 arms. This is what they should look like, all nice and finished. Make sure that you finish them off of where your stitch marker is, so slip stitch right there. Okay, so now we're going to be making the feet. So just like the arms, you're going to be making a magic ring of 6 single crochets. So make that circle and pull up some yarn, make the knot, and pull out the little strand like that. Oops, yeah, like that. Now we're going to be making our 6 single crochets. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so now we're just going to tighten it with that small strand, but don't pull it too tight because then it's impossible to get in there into that first stitch. To struggle. So leave a little gap to be able to get into that first stitch like that. And then you're going to do your first single crochet, tighten the circle, and then we are going to put in the stitch marker into that first stitch, and now we're going to be doing an increase in all the stitches, just like with the arms. So into that first stitch that you just made, go back in to make the increase, so you have 2 stitches in one. Go all around just like that, 2 stitches in one, and you should be ending off with 12 stitches in the end. Okay, so now that you're done with row 2, you're going to do row 3 by increasing in every other stitch. So where that stitch marker is, you're going to do your first single crochet, mark that, and then you're going to go into the next stitch by increasing 1 and 2, and then in that next stitch you're going to do a single crochet. So repeat that pattern for the whole row. Okay, now that we're done with row 3, we're going to start on row 4 by increasing after 2 single crochets. So that first stitch of where our stitch marker is, that's our first single crochet, and then that next one is our second single crochet. Then in that next stitch we're going to increase by 2 stitches in one. Okay, so yeah, you're gonna do the 2 single crochets first, and then you're gonna do the increase and repeat that pattern for the whole row, and you should have 24 stitches in the end. Okay, so now that you're done with row 4, we're gonna be doing row 5 by just single crocheting into that first single crochet of where the stitch marker goes, and you're just going to single crochet into the rest of those stitches from row 5 to row 6 to end with the same number of stitches, which is 24. Okay, so now that you're done with row 6, we're going to start on row 7 by single crocheting into where, first I'm going to flip that foot inside out, so it should look like that. And now I'm going to single crochet into that first stitch of where our stitch marker goes, and then I'm going to go into the next stitch and single crochet, and then I'm going to secure that. Now we're going to be making 6 decreases. So remember the 2 front loops of 2 stitches, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so now that you have your 6 decreases, that's my last one, there. Now you're just going to single crochet into the rest of these stitches, and it should have like this kind of weird like form starting, and you're just going to finish off with those 6 single crochets. Okay, so now that you're done with row 7, we're going to start on row 8 by single crocheting into those first 2 stitches. So that's 1, mark it, secure, and then you're going to do number 2. And after that, we're going to be making 4 decreases. So remember the front loop of the next 2 stitches, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now you're just going to be making those decreases. And after that, you're just going to single crochet into the rest of those stitches. Now that we're done with row 8, we're going to start on row 9, and we're just going to be single crocheting into the rest of those stitches until we hit the end. Now that we're done with row 9, we're just going to go into that stitch marker stitch and we're going to slip stitch, chain 1, pull enough yarn, and then we're going to cut, tighten, and we're going to be making those steps for another leg. So now I'm going to be showing you how to do that on the arm. So it's kind of like paw, I don't know how to call them, but we're just going to be doing that. So stick the needle through like around here. Stick the needle inside the arm, then you're going to pull enough yarn so that you can wrap it around like the arm like that. And then you're going to go under that yarn into a stitch underneath like that. Then you're going to pull like that, and it should secure it in place. Try not to go too far off. I went a little far off on this arm, and it should start to look like that. Now we're going to go into back around where we first did that first stitch, I would like to say, but it's not a stitch, and that's going to be the like middle paw. I really don't know what to call them. And then you're going to go in for the last time around the same area, stick it out, and then you're going to wrap it and hold it in place. Then you're going to go underneath that yarn into a random stitch and poke your needle through, bring it out, and pull. Then you're going to go into that back into that first stitch, that stitch that you just did underneath the yarn, and then you're going to stick it through like the middle of the paw. Then we are going to be making a knot, so just go into the, like that middle paw and bring it under the yarn. Don't go into the stitch, under the yarn. Make a loop, and then you're gonna bring your needle through it to make a knot. Pull it nice and tight. Here I made a big knot, but we don't want to show that, so you're gonna have to stick the needle into where that you made that knot, back into the arm, and try to pull it as much so that we don't see a knot on the arm, just like that. And you're gonna do that for your other arm. Now we're gonna tie the strings as far as possible. Then we're gonna cut the yarn as far as possible as well, so that we don't see any black strands poking out. And there's your finished arm. Now I added stuffing to my arm. You don't have to if you don't want to, if it can hold its shape. So here I have the example. Now I'm going to show you how to close the arm. So take the yarn that you cut off with from the arm, and just take it into the next stitch, close it nice and tight, go into that next stitch and pull it through those two stitches from both sides, pull it nice and tight, and go into those last stitches, then keep a loop so that your needle can go through it to make the knot. Pull nice and tight, and there, you don't need to cut it, we're going to use that strand. So there's your finished arm. Now we're going to sew it on place. So you guys can do it like 2 stitches from the nose, which is what I did. It's a good placement. And we're going to use that yarn that we didn't cut off, that we used. And I'm just going to stick it into the body as close as possible. And the needle went a little out. I finished that. It's a bit hard, so I skipped. Then you're going to poke your needle through the body and cut off that excess. And there's your other arm, and now you're going to do that for the other arm. Okay, so now I have my 2 arms put together and a foot. Now I'm going to be showing you how to stick the foot in. It's practically the same thing as the arms. You're just going to be sticking it from the foot to the body, from the body to the foot, and try to keep it around the same area of where the arm rests when you like push it together. So try to keep it as even as possible. So now you stick it into the body and back onto the foot. Sorry I'm covering it. It's really hard to say on camera, but you just do the same procedures as last time. It's really simple. I know you guys are able to do it, so you just do the same thing over and over. Okay, so now we're going to be making the ears, and we're going to be making a magic ring of 4 stitches. You guys should already know how to make this, so I'm going to skip. Okay, now that you have your 4 single crochets into that magic ring, we are going to single crochet into that first stitch and mark it right after you make that increase. So now you're going to mark it into that first stitch you made. So now you're just going to increase in all the stitches into the rest of those stitches to have a total of 8 stitches in total. Now that you're done with that second row, we're going to single crochet into that first stitch that we made. I don't think we're going to need to mark it, but if you want, you can. I did. We're just going to be single crocheting into the rest of those stitches and slip stitch, chain 1 into where that's into that stitch marker place, cut it, tighten, and you're going to repeat that for a tail and 2 ears. Now we're going to be placing the ears on the head. So starting from where the magic circle is, magic ring, you're going to count 3 rows. So that's 3 rows. And make sure to get it along the lines of where the eye is placed. Now we're going to center it of where we want it to be. Same steps as before. Hi guys! Okay, so now we have our ears, our arms, and feet stitched together. Now we're going to be stitching on the tail. Okay, so starting from where we ended off the body, we're going to count 5 rows to place our tail. Now I'm going to be making the nose. So I'm going to be making a slip knot, just like that, and we're going to be chaining 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to be using a number 4 hook. So now we're going to be single crocheting into that 3rd chain from the hook. So you can't see obviously because it's black, but it's there, okay? So you just single crochet. Now that we're on the next side, we're going to single crochet onto those little holes and to end it off at the end, just like that. You just slip stitch and chain 1. Now we're going to place it on the nose. So try to cut enough yarn to be able to have the yarn so that you can use it to sew on the nose onto where the nose is going to be placed. So I placed it right in the middle, and I'm going to turn it around so that's easier, and there you have it. Same procedures as last time, guys. I'm not going to show it anymore. Now we're going to be making the mouth. So I made a knot at the end. I'm going to stick it in through the middle of where the nose, on top of the nose, and bring it out of where I want the mouth to start. So I'm going to be making like a smirk kind of nose, and make sure to pull that all the way so you don't have a giant ball in the head. So I stitched it in, then I went underneath the mouth to make that first one, and then I'm gonna go back into that first area of where I placed it, and then I'm gonna go back to where I have it. Just trying to follow along, explaining the best I can. And then we are gonna place the needle somewhere in between where you can't see the yarn. It's not really noticeable, or it's just like part of the mouth, you know? And you can stick it anywhere into the body. We're not going to be making a knot for this one. And shape the mouth if it gets too flat. I hope everyone enjoyed this video, and thank you for following along. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this. I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye!